Yeah, I mean, it seems like all the deals that Trump is quote unquote striking, not that these are like real deals yet, are, or it seems like they're gonna keep the 10% tariff on on basically everyone for most industries at least, and I'm very much against that.
You know, for a lot of the cheaper products, they literally have people basically in slave labor. And the fact that any of you support that is absolutely disgusting. I don't want to give China $1.
We're the ones paying for all of the R&D because all the other companies are negotiating drug prices and we're not. All of that was factually true.
The opposite side of that for you, though, is it feels like if Bernie did go through with that, a lot of conservatives would be freaking the fuck out about it and saying this is communism, this is price controls, this is what the Soviet Union did, blah, 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 blah. If you want to help me continue to produce content, liking and subscribing is greatly appreciated. Also, make sure to check out my Discord server, linked down below, where you can also find my Twitch, my Kick, and my Twitter.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be plenty of Malden at some point.
Good to see you again.
So yeah, as the first topic here, we're going to cover a few topics because there's a lot of things that have been happening here in the news in the world. Russia-Ukraine peace talks. What do we think? How they're going? How's Trump's handling? Are we fans? Do we hate it? We'll start with Nonfon. What do you think?
I have not followed that one at all. I guess like
good.
I guess like my general feeling would be like I don't think Trump is a particularly great negotiator, like people seem to think he is for whatever reason, and I don't trust him to actually lobby in Ukraine's interests as effectively as I would like him to. But I don't know the specifics of the talk, so I don't know. Maybe Trump will surprise me and we'll end up getting a really good deal for Ukraine, but I doubt it.
All right. Thank you so much, Tiberius.
All right. Yeah, I had to think about this one, but we'll just go without the notes this time. I gotta admit my bias first, and then we'll get into the details. The bias is that I don't have, I'll put it this way, I have a bit of a grudge towards the Russians. After, 80 years of subjecting the world to totalitarian socialism and then picking this limp-dick fascism that they're going down, I'm not a huge fan of them. Particularly since they've been pointing nuclear weapons at my face for the last 60 goddamn years. You can stop now, thanks. Outside of that conversation is that how is Trump handling the peace talks? I don't know, because he's not really given any details about what he actually wants, what he's expecting from the Ukrainians, and what he's expected from the Russians. He's been dogging on the Ukrainians, but outside of telling them, hey, you need to have concession X, which I haven't really seen in formal writing, I don't know what this asshole wants. So I can't really give him even a grade score or a, comprehension of, hey, this is what's going on, because everyone's keeping it pretty, I don't know what the words are, like, close to the chest, basically, is what we're seeing here. I just don't know, and I hate to give you all that answer, but if you all have details you want to share with me, we can elaborate from there. But as far as I'm aware, Trump hasn't aligned his strategic position. The Ukrainians have, and the Russians have, and those are not going to work together. So, what are you going to do, Trump?
All right, Nina.
Yeah, I think that Trump just wants to be the guy. I don't think he has any idea what he's talking about. He has been very much proven to be completely politically inept. He has no idea what he talks about when he talks about stuff. And to move on from that to actual political something of value, the fact that couldn't get Vladimir Putin to come to the talks in Turkey really proves that he doesn't respect him clearly at all. Like, he doesn't give a shit about, he thinks I'm the deal guy, but I can't even get this guy to come to the political talks that are happening in Turkey here while I'm doing my big beautiful going around the Middle East tour. He's completely inept, absolutely useless. Zelensky is I simp for him all the time because of, obviously, the man knows if he loses he dies. That's not the same when it comes to Putin. And the fact that Zelensky is playing all facets of this, he himself is also an entertainer. He knows how to make Trump entertained and bring him to the table. I think that he is a vastly more competent political agent for his country than Trump is. I think Trump is an absolute fucking embarrassment. He is useless, and he just again has spent 25% of his I think it might have gone down to 23% of his presidency golfing. He's not there. He's doing nothing. He's useless.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Grid.
I don't know. I mean, I'm at an intersection on this one because on the one hand, I think Ukraine has fucked themselves, and we should never have given them as much money as we have. I don't even know why we're involved in the peace talks at all, other than I guess we swing the biggest dick in the neighborhood. And other than that, who cares? I think Trump is just as. I mean, I think Trump's probably a better person to do the deal than anybody else currently in existence on the planet, except possibly for myself. And I'm busy, so let's get into it.
All right.
To prove you're unserious.
I literally just got here, lady.
I mean,
So did I.
We'll go to you, Tiberius. What do you think? You seem to have some criticism. Do you agree that with Grid's assessment that Trump's the best person to do this deal? Like, because it doesn't seem like you would agree with that, but I think you do agree that we're the biggest dick in the neighborhood.
Biggest dick in the neighborhood to a point. The reality is that my assessment is this war only happened for one reason. We won't actually flex our dick. We won't actually say, no, we're going to put an armor division in Kiev and, Russia, if you want to come at us, go for it. That's why this war got kicked off, is that we won't actually put our money where our mouths are. And the Russians are calling our bluff, is really what's going on here.
In fairness, the last time we did that, the rubber tore and the Vietnam War happened.
I would actually argue that it was Afghanistan, but, we've got
we could go with that one too?
Yeah.
I agree with you that we're doing appeasement, right? Like, I assume you're more referring to, like, the 2014, like, annexation of Crimea. Like, we didn't actually draw a red line.
Well, we keep doing the same thing, and now the Russians have been doing it too, where we all keep drawing red lines, and then we go past them, and then nothing fucking happens, right?
Right, exactly. So, yeah.
Like, the Russians gassing people in Syria, which has still not been technically proven, as far as I'm aware.
What do you mean? Are you talking about
the Syrian air base in 2017 that Trump tomahawked the fuck out of? It was based on. Yeah, it was based upon intelligence that the Russians were actually trying to gas Syrian nationals. We never got that proven, but that's why we threw 60 Tomahawk missiles at them, just in case they actually were.
Well, just to be clear, it was also because they attacked one of our military bases.
Okay, I think that's getting a little in the weeds here.
Yeah,
we are getting a little in the weeds, but go ahead.
Yeah, foreign policy is kind of a B for me, so yeah, I can get in the weeds pretty easily. Long story short, is Trump the best guy to do it? Perspective. On one hand, he's had some pretty favorable dealings with the Russians going back 30 years. So if you wanted somebody to make a deal with the Russians...
You mean business dealings?
Lots of dealings. I'm not going to go down that whole
road. Wait, would that not be a detriment?
Potentially. It depends on how you look at this, because this is one of those
wait.
Right?
If you're gonna do politics, it's not about making a business deal. Like, it shouldn't. Like, politics are for the gain of. You're not working for yourself. You're working for your country, right? So, like, it's a completely different dynamic, right? Though you would agree with that?
I would not agree with that, because if you're looking at, I wouldn't. Because if you're looking at this from a particular dynamic that Trump does, and I kind of agree with him on this one, is that Trump was there originally to embetter the institution of Trump Inc., right? And that's not just him, it's family members, it's people who work for him, all that. And now he's kind of doing the same as a representative of the United States federal government. Just to be on the same page with you, I don't like this guy.
We're not his family.
We're not, and there's a level where, does he actually give a shit about us? I personally don't believe he does, but there's something that he is going to be trying to get after, because you can't be a wondrous and successful president revered by at least the people who support you if you're a cataclysmic failure, at least in my opinion. And
that is not true.
Well, okay, I think
there's been plenty of presidents in our history that have absolutely been used. Sorry, go ahead.
Sure. Trump will try to paint any minor concession on anything as a win. It doesn't. I don't think his base will care. There might be some independents that flip one way or the other, but his base is absolutely not going to care about what actual concessions he gets out of Russia or anything.
Yeah, the only thing I've actually seen his base push. Go ahead.
Let me just. I guess I'll play the MAGA guy since I don't have a pure MAGA representative. I mean, Grid, you don't call yourself a pure MAGA either, right?
I'm a Trump supporter. I don't know that I'm MAGA per se.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I'll play MAGA for a second, just for the argument. The argument, though, like, right? I guess there's two arguments. One, to like Tiberius's point, would be, yeah, he's had this dealings, so he might be in a position to be able to get a better deal or exert pressure on him from a different angle that otherwise might not. The other thing I would say is that, yeah, people might paint any concession, but okay, like it depends on what you're calling. Like a concession, right? So if we look at like the China talk, right, that we're just having, which we'll get into a little bit more, I think, in the next portion of this, I would say that he succeeded quite a bit in making things better.
You know what he did is he just brought it back to normal before he fucked them and then they fucked us and then he brought it back
it's
to.
It's not even normal. We still have a 30%
fucked us.
That's a dumbest thing I've heard.
And it's also for like 60 days, right? Like or 90, 69,
90 days. But we'll get into that more in the next.
He didn't do anything.
Well, I'll set it up and you can argue that one in a second. But just let me. I'll go to you, Greg, just real quick. I was gonna say the other thing is it depends on what you're framing as victories, like, right? Like if he's able to get them to the table and accomplish something where he actually forces
he hasn't done it.
Well, I mean, okay, you don't think that he's taken steps to do that? Like
I don't give a shit how many steps he's taken. If he has been failing at every single step of it, it's completely useless. He's not even coming. They're doing peace talks in Turkey with Ukraine, and Putin's not even coming.
Show. Well, I'll put it in this regard. Talks are talks, but whenever the guy that you're supposed to actually meet up with doesn't show up to the talks, this is something that doesn't make Trump.
It's worthless. Yeah.
Well, I got to be honest. I don't know. Again,
Sure.
I keep. Why are we involved at all anyway? We should not be involved in the peace process. We provided Ukraine weaponry against.
Well, wouldn't that be a reason why
Stop! I let you babble.
Okay,
it's okay.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Calm down. We provided them with weapons. Why would the Russians believe jack shit we had to say, at all? I mean, this is.
What do you mean believe?
Why would they think that we're an impartial party to mediate when we literally supplied their opposition with weapons
That's a fair point.
Gave them a ton of money?
We're not supposed to be impartial. We're supposed to lobby on behalf of Ukraine because they're a smaller country. This is what MAGA people told me. There are MAGA people who have told me Trump is going to go to Putin and say, if you don't sign this deal.
Let's go to Nina, then we're gonna Nina.
They're literally our ally. So no, he's absolutely right that like we are not supposed to be impartial. We are supposed to advocate for our ally, but that doesn't mean that we can't bring people to the table. You can absolutely bring people to the table while being in opposition to them. Like that's just kind of normal diplomacy.
Tiberius?
Yeah. So. I'm not going to put us in the situation that we are a Ukrainian ally.
We are.
Yeah, hold on. Let me finish, guys. I'm not going to put us in the camp that the Ukrainians are our allies. As far as I'm concerned, the only allies the United States actually has is the Australians and the Brits, and everybody else can fucking pound sand. When it comes to what we're dealing with here, is that it's not about Ukraine being our friend. It's about the Russians being our enemy. Now, granted, I came up with my bias from the start, but most people in Washington up until the better part of the last few years universally agreed with me. The Russians are not our friends. They don't embody anything that we like.
Objectively wrong about the Ukrainians not being our allies.
What example of why they're our allies?
Well, you would at least say like a geopolitical
them
sense.
As our allies.
I can only listen to one.
Wait, what a time. Go ahead,
Nina.
The State Department classifies them as our allies. What do you mean? We have
that's meaningless in the global.
Oh, okay, yeah, it doesn't mean anything. Got it.
It is meaningless. Nobody gives a shit. He literally.
This administration doesn't give a shit. You're correct.
The only people that we can count on, if shit goes to shit,
you know that there's legal.
I don't honestly count on the fucking British. Like we're in this. Maybe
okay,
the
so
Australians.
allies or whatever you think it is. Got it.
Yeah, the number one.
Is a very specific thing.
Correct.
And Ukraine is not an ally in any stretch.
It is legally our ally.
I'm gonna. That's where I'll take issue.
Go ahead. We'll go to you after. We'll go to Nonfon after you, Tiberius. Go ahead.
Sure. So I will totally get into the idea that the Ukrainians are looking to join basically the American world order, right? They want democracy, they want some level of independent rights and the whole 9 yards that the Germans have and the Poles have and basically all of Eastern Europe has gained in the last 30 years. Completely admirable thing. I'm 100% on board with this. On the other side of that, they're not a legal member of any kind of defensible agreement that we have. The closest thing that we have was that we had a word-of-mouth agreement that when they gave up their nuclear weapons in 93, 94, somewhere along that time, we basically gave them a word. They didn't break it. We broke it.
No, well, I mean, we kind of both broke it, but they were trying to sell the nukes back out of the back door. And Russia, it took, like 10 years for Russia to eventually get all of the nukes back from Ukraine.
Yeah, that sounds like horseshit because we took the nukes and we literally spun them down into nuclear fuel that we shoved in our reactors.
Some of it, yes, but not all of it.
That's not.
Citation needed on that one, my friend.
Anyway, keep going.
All right.
But yeah, I would largely put like legally, unfortunately, we're not an ally to Ukraine. I will totally buy into the argument that they want to be a friend, and I'm fine with that. But as far as the actual like, hey, you know, we have a legal treaty says that we're supposed to do it, unfortunately not. Which isn't our bad. Actually, I'm going to blame Clinton on that one.
Go ahead, Nonfon.
I mean, yeah, I would hope we would at least concede that, like, geopolitically, the U.S. is at least, like, behaving as if Ukraine is an ally. Like, we clearly, you know, want Ukraine to succeed in the war. We're clearly helping Ukraine. We're behaving as if they're an ally. You might say they're not a very good ally. You know, to which I would say, I mean, it seems like Ukraine does help us in a way. Like, for example, I know Ukraine shares military intelligence with us. We'll give them weapons, and then they report, like, how those weapons do on the field. I mean, Ukraine is going after one of our, you know, main geopolitical rivals, weakening their military. That seems like you know, an ally thing to do, right? I mean, obviously they're doing so in defense of their own nation, but still. And there's probably, I mean, they are an important trading partner for Europe at the very least. I don't know how much we trade directly with Ukraine, but they were trying to join the EU. They provide the EU with a lot of their bread, and I think it's fair to consider at least some countries in the EU our ally as well. So,
yeah, go ahead, Grid.
Yeah, so just you know, and I have it's weird. I actually had this document marked from some other debate that I did.
Sure.
According to the Arms Control Association, who should know, it took from it started in 1991 or 1990 with the Declaration of Sovereignty. Ukraine pledged to not accept, produce, or acquire nuclear weapons. However, despite this public commitment, Ukrainian politicians were not entirely united by the idea. Some felt blah, 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 blah. It's just a bunch of rhetoric.
Sure.
There were multiple accords with the United States and others until 2014. They finally gave up the last of the weapons or materials.
Yeah. Well, I'll put it this way. The Arms Control Association doesn't ever hit my radar on anything. And then I've got a couple of issues just with what I was hearing in terms.
Are we ignoring the fact that the
timeline's
reason why
pretty
they gave up? No, the reason why they gave up the nukes was for security, with security assurances that we have now been giving them weapons. That is their security assurance at the time that we are now doing. Would you really split hairs about that being an alliance?
There was no alliance. There's no treaty.
Well, hold on.
I'm saying, are you really splitting hair about the literal word of the alliance? Are you going to be a pedant about this? Come on.
Well, hold on. I'm going to engage with what Gina just said real quick, and then you can go, Grant. I'm a little bit torn on this, right? So on one hand, I kind of support something similar to that Tiberius' worldview. I'd add a few more countries like France and like Rwanda who are actively doing replacing U.S. interest and doing stuff for us. However, to Nina's point though, is we did make an agreement. And they might not be tangibly a beneficial ally in the sense, whatever, but because we made this agreement and we put people there, we've supplied them, we've now in our vested our interest in this. There is some sort of, I don't know if alliance is the right word. However, we do have a obligation.
We gave them security assurances. We gave them security assurances. You notice the thing when Trump, you notice when Trump was meeting with Zelensky, one of the big things that he kept wanting to harp on was I'm not going to sign anything without security insurances. And he's a giga chad for that, for sure. Because like that's what he needed, because that's the reason why we as the US right now are giving them weapons, which by the way are munitions that we would have had to pay money to destroy anyways because they're old. It's not like we're giving them like our best, you know what I mean? Like the reason why that they were given those, that was because of the agreement that we signed years ago in 1991, I think, to have security assurances. But Trump won't fucking sign anything like that because he doesn't give a shit about actually giving them. And then why the fuck would they ever agree to any ceasefire that didn't require that?
Please show me a document where it said that we would give them military protection.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tiberius, while she looks for that.
Yeah, so just with Grid's point about the Ukrainian sovereignty and whatnot, we could probably go down that rabbit hole, but it would be a whole other conversation. So can we table that?
It's irrelevant, largely.
I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But
they broke it. They didn't follow it. That's all that reason. You know.
Okay. Well, yeah.
They had multiple treaties. They had literally they renegotiated this multiple times. That's all you need to know. I mean, it started in. They signed the Lisbon Protocol in '92.
I don't know how to send this to.
So on and so forth.
Like there was problems, right? Yeah, there was conversations about Ukrainian broken arrows and more particularly Russian ones.
Yeah, perfect.
Sure. The problem is I got 30 years of history all kind of going back in my head, but it ain't lining up. So we'll have to have that conversation later. To Nina's point, I don't think that there is a formal treaty that I can think of. I know that there was some agreements made, and a lot of them were word of mouth, but most of it was just, oh, hey, we're going to take your nukes, and then we're going to imply that we'll give you security. The problem is that, to her point, and she's 100% correct on this, for us to back out of that, it does make us look like a very bad faith actor, particularly if somebody's going to give up their
we
nukes.
are a bad faith actor with the way that Trump's behaving.
So what we signed was called the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. I'll do your homework for you. It was signed July 31st, 1991, by us in the Soviet Union, not Ukraine.
Hold on.
We basically.
Wait, what do you mean? No, what? No, you're already wrong. What do you mean? It was after the fall of the Soviet Union. There was no Soviet Union at the time.
Yeah, I think she's talking about the Budapest Memorandum.
Yeah, what she's talking about is
1991. The Soviet Union exists.
It did. It
Are
collapsed
you
in
fucking
December.
retarded?
What?
It literally says the Strategic Arm Reduction Treaty START was signed July 31, 1991 by the United States and the Soviet Union.
1931. We're not talking about that.
Stop.
No, you should stop. We're not talking about that.
U.S., Soviet, Russian reductions of strategic nuclear weapons.
Okay, well, you're having a conversation with yourself.
That ensured
okay, we'll let the old man talk.
All right,
okay, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the Budapest Memorandum, I believe, which was signed.
I have no idea what we're talking about.
Let me get here, please.
That's what he was talking about in 1991.
Yeah, we're talking about the Budapest Memorandum, which was signed between the U.S. and Ukraine, and I think like Ireland and the UK or whatever. It was where Ukraine gave up its nukes in exchange for some security guarantees to the U.S.
And the Budapest Memorandum does not say anything about military support.
Well, it does.
I believe it.
That's great for what you're talking about. There's multiple Budapest memorandums, and that's not the one we're talking about.
I believe it. I think it's. I don't know if it's a security guarantee. I don't know if it's like a legally binding thing, but it was the intention of it was
when they gave up their nukes. When they gave up their nukes, which was not in 42 or what the fuck you said. Like, is not what we're talking about, bitch.
Or they were going to be invaded by Russia. That's literally how that worked.
Yeah, in 1920 or whatever you said. Yeah, that's definitely what you're talking about.
I said 1991.
He said 91. Like the problem I have.
Correct. 90. Yes, correct.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
All right, I have the exact quote just to clarify. So this is the number 4 of the Budapest whatever. Seek immediate Security Council action to provide assistance to the signatory if they become a victim of an act of aggression or an object of a threat of aggression, which nuclear weapons are used. So I guess. You could say, in theory, that we wouldn't be obligated because of them using nukes, like Russia's never used nukes. However, even if we were to say that Russia has threatened it, so that would fulfill the second part of that. So I feel like
we did ask Europe to help. We did exactly that. we sought
Mhm.
help for them.
All right, let me split hairs here. Legalistically speaking, we have abided by our treaty obligations. What I have a problem with is that, at least a little bit from my friend Grid here, is I'm getting a little bit of like a one-track situation here. It was a good thing that Ukrainians gave up their nukes, not in the present tense, but in the past tense, it was huge because Ukraine was broke. They didn't have the money to
Yeah, they didn't
and
have
the
the way
specialists.
to manage it.
Yeah, they didn't. You don't want nuclear weapons just not being maintained. It's a bad deal. All right.
Right,
So
right,
like this
right.
was a good deal.
Yeah.
I'm 100% with Nina when it
I
comes
agree with
full
you.
circle, where it's just like, yo, this is a bad look. I get that if you are a person who's like, you know what, I don't want to tangle with the Russians. I don't want to risk Atlanta and New York and fucking Seattle because of some place in Eastern Europe. I can get behind that argument, but someone please make that argument so I can at least address that, because right now it's just we're talking about what we should have done 30 fucking years ago.
Well, I mean, like, are you? I guess I don't know what you're asking exactly,
I
but
think
like,
the point is that we're being Nina's claiming that we are obligated to support Ukraine.
Yes, that's what
because
we agreed.
Because we encouraged them to give up their weapons. Yet
Correct.
we've never promised to do anything more than
No, we did.
basically
I
appeal on their
showed you.
behalf to the EU, which we did, and the EU's told them
No,
to go
we're
fuck
doing
themselves.
exactly.
I don't
Okay,
think-
when we give them weapons, we're doing exactly what we said we were going to do, which is defend.
No, that's not what that says
supporting them.
at all.
How so?
Seriously?
Yeah.
Read it again, Gibbs.
So okay, I'll pull it back up. Yeah, I might have moved it, but yeah, okay.
Before-
Seek immediate Security Council action to provide assistance to the signatory if
Security
quote
Council.
Assistance
become a
to.
victim of an act of aggression or an act or of a threat of aggression in
We
which
did that.
nuclear weapons are used.
Yeah, we gave them assistance. We're still giving them assistance.
No,
What do you mean?
Security. We were to appeal to the Security Council, which we did.
And they said that we should give them weapons. So
No, they did not. They told the Ukraine to go pound sand.
That's
why
not.
it was
They only
like
started
they-
doing that when
Okay.
Trump came to office.
That's
No,
why
every
there's
so
literally
every
not Ukraine.
wait, Grid.
That's why
really,
the UK is not-
when? Show me. When did they say to go pound sand?
No, hold on. Like every one of these like
I'm
UN General
paraphrasing.
Assembly resolutions and every one of these UN Security Council resolutions always sided with Ukraine. You can look at the votes, and it's like every country except for like
Correct.
Russia and Iran
did they
side
send it
are
by
siding
money?
with Ukraine until
Okay,
Trump
correct.
got
When
into
did they send
office,
them
by the
money?
way. And then the U.S. started voting
did they
along with
send
Russia
money?
and Iran in these
You are-
Security
you are-
Council and General Assembly
Problem.
resolutions.
Let me do this though. Let me go to all right, Tiberius. I see your hand. I will let you
Yeah.
respond, Tiberius, and then I'm going to say something after you speak because I want to jump in here real quick. Go ahead.
Okay, I haven't kept track of every single resolution in the UN about what happened with Ukraine, but let's be real here. It's really hard for me to even get on board with Team Lefty right now because the Russians have a fucking veto on the Security Council. So, like, anything that the Security Council is going to say, hey, this is what we should do, the Russians are going to veto it, and it's going to be game over. I want to split hairs here because it pisses me off. On one hand, I feel like legally, yes, we did what we needed to do, and Grid's right. But moralistically and ethically speaking, we should go further. I'm 100% with Team
that's
Lefty.
And
actually-
if you're
that's
gonna make
actually-
that claim, cool. But
Yeah.
making the claim that we were legally obligated to do something more than we did is wrong.
Cool.
Let me just
Stop doing it.
expand. Let me just expand on that. real
I
quick.
disagree.
Like,
It doesn't matter if you disagree.
I think by
Hold on.
our
Legally, you're
agreement. I think
wrong.
by our agreements that we talked about that we were legally required to do that. What do you mean?
Well, let me.
I don't know if
pose
the
this
Budapest
question to you
Memorandum
then,
was
Nina.
binding. I don't know.
Let me pose this to you, Nina.
I mean, if you're being a pedant, then fine. But like you, okay. fine.
Well, no, hold on. Let me pose this to you, Nina, because you seem to be the most passionate on this issue on like as far as the left side. Let me give it to you like this. All right. So like
Left
say
side?
to me on the I mean, you're not a
Is
conservative.
being pro-Ukraine a left or right position?
No. I mean, I'm pro-Ukraine as far as a righty would be. Like, I like to sell weapons. So,
Okay.
if I was to pose this question to you from like maybe someone more like on Grid's position, how would you sell like us supporting Ukraine to someone that is like, I don't know, pretty much like, why should we be over there? This seems like another man's war. Like, we've been over the seas.
We're
for
not
the last
over
30
there.
years.
It's pretty easy. We're not over there. We're giving them our old munitions that we would have to pay money to get rid of anyways. Like all of the what is it, like $360 billion or whatever that we've given to Ukraine. the majority of that has been old munitions that we would have to pay to destroy anyways. Like, it wouldn't have been like we're not giving them like cash, you know, we're giving them our old shit, we're giving them our like World War II style or era munitions. It is a win. It is you're a liar, but it's a win-win for us. It's an absolute win-win for us. Like, giving people.
That's not World War II.
Well, hold on. Well, some of this stuff is
of course not. But I'm not saying that's the majority. Do you think that we've given them like $350 billion of just javelins? Like, get out of here! You have no idea what you're talking about.
I think we only recently started doing the Patriot missiles.
Mines, aircraft, security things. These are military things that we do not use because we have better stuff. So what the fuck do we do with our shit that is, we have a better thing? We're just giving them it. It's a literal win-win.
Well, so yeah, actually, let me piggyback off this and pose to you this question, Grit. Why would, like, okay, so to some extent, I don't know about the World War II era, but we are selling a lot of our old tech, and we are selling some new stuff. We've invested in this, and we only get paid. We only get paid if they. Well, no, because they do have to. No, it's on a lend-lease, right? They have to pay us back, and we only get paid back.
Yes.
Hey, in theory, you know, but we only get paid if they continue to exist. So, you know, and
that's
Trump.
the only good point.
Okay, here's one more. Trump also signed that, you know, the minerals deal. Some of those portions are in territory controlled by the Russians. And I mean, I don't know if you know U.S. history, but if you have something that we want and we've already signed for it, you know, you don't want to be holding that land generally, right? How do you like argue like, hey, we shouldn't be over there whenever now we have vested interest in getting our money back from these people and their mineral rights? How would you say, why would you argue we should still not be over there?
You mean as far as sending them weapons and war material?
Yeah, like, I mean, because now it's
honestly,
like,
if they had prepaid, I'd have no problem. But the credit card deal, swiping a credit card, I have a little bit of a problem with that, because you know how many countries have paid us back in war debt? 8.
We've gone over this before. It seems like a lot of, I think Britain paid off their war debt in like 1970 for World War II
like
or whatever.
2016, like it was a lot. Like it took a long fucking time, man.
Yeah, it takes a while. That's how it works. Like, what do you expect countries to behave like a person?
From 1944?
Well, look,
That's
so
fine.
she has.
They're paying.
So she has already
interest.
mentioned. It seems like there are benefits to the U.S. from supporting Ukraine, and I'd also say it seems like there are benefits probably for liberal democracies in, you know, sort of the global order generally by supporting Ukraine.
For sure.
I don't think the standard going forward should be if you invade a smaller country, you're allowed to just unilaterally change their borders if you have nuclear weapons or something. I don't think that's a world that we want to live in, and I think it's good that the U.S. sort of fulfills the role as the world police, as you like to call it, or whatever, to make sure countries have an incentive not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to turn this into entirely a Ukraine conversation, and I have no problem doing that. But like, this is going to be a very it's going to be a very one-track
started that way, but okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I was actually I was going to let you say one more thing, and then we're going to go. But that's fine. Perfect segue. So let's open it up to Trump and China here. I mean, how do we think he's doing foreign policy? I know Nina spoke first. I'll let you go ahead and say what you were saying, because you seem to think it was very bad what Trump has done with the tariffs and the trade deal. What are your thoughts, Nina? Go ahead, and you can start us off with this.
Trump and China. I think that China is unironically, as much as I am an America simp, as you can tell by my gigantic American flag, I think America is the best country in the world, as much as I don't love it right now. But it is something I will always love, of course. But I think that China is just calling our bluff. We're just doing a hem and haw. We're doing a push and pull. Like we're doing nothing here. Trump is just floundering. I don't think that China should capitulate to America, because we're just being fucking retards right now, fiscally. And I think that one of the biggest issues that we're seeing here is with these inconsistencies. They're like, oh, it's going to create different things in the market later. No, what people want to do with their businesses is they want stability. They want to make businesses, or they want to have like things with China or whatever, because they know what they're going to expect. And now it's that we can't do that now in America. Like, what the fuck? Like, we are literally living in a world where we have no idea. Like, there's people who have small businesses who make, like, I don't know, manufacture. I think I read something about somebody who like made like baby stuff, like, and they can't pay the tariffs. Like, this is insane. Like, because again, tariffs are a tax on individual or on businesses. It is not a tax on the other people. Like, they're like, I can't have this. I can't pay for this. Like, there's nothing I can do. And it's just it's so fucking wild to think that China's going to be the one paying for this?
Are we going to get a position?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, am I going on too long? Sorry, I was
No,
getting
you're
like
just
a
burning out, and nowhere in that rambling, incoherent obfuscation.
That was
there an
incoherent,
outline?
and what about that was incoherent? Do you want
I got a point out of that, but go.
Yeah, okay. Here's what we'll do. Good time. Everybody get an opening on this. Go
What's
ahead.
the point of that? Can you help me out?
Well,
To explain that tariffs are bad.
Well, that I thought that the point of that was that I think that the tariffs are very bad, and they're really fucking up the fact that
Okay.
people that are running
All right,
small
there we go.
businesses
Got it.
have no ability to figure out how they're going to go about getting their inventory.
we'll
Yeah,
go
I'm
with
certain
Was
Tiberius
that
actually
was that
mentioned-
incoherent? Was that incoherent or like what?
I don't know.
Keep your
but-
hate boners
Can
to
you-
yourselves.
Yeah, that's fine. Here's
Can
what we're
you
gonna do
just
next.
do that from now on and
Oh,
not
yeah.
like berg out on both sides and just stick to
Listen,
the non.
this is-
Well, you
This
know
is-
what would be great if you could just respond to what I said.
All right, so here's what we're gonna do though.
I
I'm gonna let Tiberius go next, and then Nonfon, then Grid, you can go, and then we'll open it up to free debate again. Go ahead, Tiberius.
Did Nonfon get a spot in this already? I just
He's
missed
going.
that?
No, he's
Not
going
yet.
after you.
Okay, gotcha.
That was making too
Anyway,
much sense.
long story short, I will try to table the greater tariffs conversation here, if we can, please. I prefer not to give Nonfon a stroke, and then also I don't have time to debate the greater nuances
Yeah,
of
go ahead.
tariffs.
Focus on China. Focus on China.
Yeah, China. I'm having a real hard time with this because one of the handful of things that I actually legitimately loved about Trump, and there's like 8 of them, right? Almost everything else he sucks at, is that his first presidency actually changed the narrative on China. Everyone in DC was kissing China's ass on how great they were and how it was wonderful that we were making money. And, it's just the great experiment because they were having some pro-democracy movements back in the 2000s. And we thought they were going to go liberal. Well, that conversation aside, Trump actually got people to treat the Chinese as a malevolent actor. And that was not talked about in Japan. That was not talked about in Washington.
Man.
I don't know what happened.
in Japan. No, I'm just
Error
kidding.
404, leave me alone. Anyway, long story short, this was not talked about in DC. Trump changed not only the conversation in DC, he changed it on the national level. Getting the United States to treat the Chinese like a malevolent actor was a huge win of Trump won for me. However, I don't get what the fuck he's doing. Because if it was just my way, Trump continued to Trump and just tell the Chinese to go fuck off. Tariff them at 200%, cut them out of the American-led order. If you don't want it to be a democracy, if you don't want to believe in human rights, get fucked, you don't get nice things. That's what I want to see going forward with U.S. foreign policy. That's what I want to see. But Trump is doing this weird shit where it's like, I'm going to tariff you, oh wait, we can have a deal. I'm going to tariff you, oh wait, we can have a deal. All right, Trump, if you want to have a better deal with the Europeans, I'm all on board with this, dude. But what is this with China? Cut them fucking out of the picture. You don't believe in human rights? You don't get fucking money. Simple as that. But we're not going to do that shit. It fucking pisses me off. Trump, step your game up and you could actually be a good president. But anyway, moving along.
Wait, you think the reason they're tariffing them is because of the human rights violations?
No,
Hold on.
what I'm saying is that that's what I want them to do. I want the United States to tariff nations who are like, hey, look, you're a dishonest actor. You imprison all your fucking people. You don't have democracy.
But
you don't believe in the rule of
that's not
law.
what's happening, right?
Yeah. Not what's happening.
Gotcha.
I'm just saying, like, that's what I want. And even if I don't get the reasoning behind it, if that's what we actually get, I'm still counting that as a win.
And
because-
justify the means.
But
Yeah.
no, not necessarily that. Don't put me in a box here. I know what you're doing. Fucking
But
Gibbs.
anything. I'm
What
not
I'm
even doing
getting at
anything.
is I believe that politics should have virtue ethics behind it, and I believe that if you want an actual benevolent capitalist society, it has to back it up. It has to say, I'm not trading with you if you're a cunt. If you break all of our copyright laws, if you fucking go after our citizens and shit, nah, get fucked.
Sure.
We're not dealing with that.
Sure.
All right, Nonfon, go ahead, and then we'll get Grid last, and then we'll open it up again.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like all the deals that Trump is quote unquote striking, not that these are like real deals yet, or it seems like they're gonna keep the 10% tariff on basically everyone for most industries at least, and I'm very much against that. It's hard for me. It is very hard for me to imagine a possible deal with China that would be so good as to compensate for the uncertainty effects of the tariffs and the effects of the tariffs themselves at 10%. I don't think we've even seen from the UK or China any meaningful concessions from them. I don't even know what China has China publicly agreed to anything yet. I don't think so. They're just the pause to negotiate tariffs or whatever. I don't think there's a clear. I don't think there's a clear goal, and it's very hard for me to say any deal at this point would actually be a net benefit, considering we've already seen a GDP contraction. But anyway.
All right, Grid, go ahead.
Yeah,
And
I'm
then
going to
attack.
kind of echo what Tiberius said. Look, and my wife is Chinese, by the way. Just in full disclosure, my wife is actually Chinese. I own property in China.
Fine, he's paid for by China.
So, yeah, I wish I was. Here's the thing. Tariff. I mean, I don't care about. I think the tariffs were a much better political move than a financial move anyway. I think they actually had some value.
Yeah, it's been
Personally,
great.
stop. I'm talking now. Personally, I think that it would do America a lot of good to bring all trade back away from China. I would love to just shut China out, 100%. Like 500% tariff, just like they did GM cars back in the day. Fuck you guys. And the horse you rode in on, and the long tall Texan that's going to bend you over next week. I don't care. And a matter of fact, Trump can't hit them hard enough. He can't. And again, I own property over there. It'll hurt me a little bit. It's going to hurt my feelings. I own a manufacturing company. It'll hurt me a little
CCP?
bit. I don't really give a shit.
All right, attack. Everybody can go now.
So does the CCP own it, or do you actually own it?
I mean, nobody actually owns anything in China. Although, to be honest with
so
you,
you don't.
although
So
to
you
be
don't
honest-
even own it. Oh my god! I mean,
Although to be honest, I'm not actually
anything.
not 100% clear on that, because
Love that
unlike
for you.
America, where you actually never own it because you have to pay property taxes and the
Unlike
and imminent
America,
domain
where
here
you
we
never
go.
own it.
Oh,
Here we go.
and imminent
Oh
domain
my
is
god!
the
Are
thing.
you the libertarian with the Asian wife? Is that who you
and-
are?
and
Are you
so
the meme?
In China,
I'll
I
tell you, though.
think that we own it for like
Fuck.
100 years or some shit like that, which is fine with me. I'll
Well, I
sell
don't
it
think
long
you do.
before then.
You just told me
I
you
think you
didn't
lease
own
it for
it.
I'm
99
gonna sell
years.
it. 100 years isn't gonna matter to me, but that's fine.
Is that why you hate me? Because I'm Japanese?
Are you Japanese, really? I could have sworn.
No,
you were,
I'm
like,
just
Vietnamese.
lying to you.
I mean, I don't think they would have
I
known
would
that.
have gone
though.
Vietnamese, but okay, I believe you're Japanese.
Anyway,
That is
mean,
an incredibly
my-
racist thing to say, but okay. Go ahead.
What? That he believed you?
Yes.
Okay, moving on. Going on. Not
Okay.
good.
Well,
Not fun. There you
Tiberius,
go. Yeah.
you can't die
Sure.
laughing down there,
I
man.
am
Breathe.
dying laughing. This is some of the most ridiculous shit I have seen. And I work with fucking electricity and fucking chemicals that can explode in my face. Like, and guys, come on. Put your
okay.
hate
Well,
motor
my
away. I
understanding
got better
is that
shit
in
to do.
China, you can get like 99-year leases for things. I don't know if it's ever actual ownership or if it's just 99-year leases. But more importantly, Grid.
Yeah,
So to be clear, you do think Trump is messing up here and trying to get some deal with China, in that you want Trump to just tariff China
Go
at
harder.
500% and try to cut them out completely.
Yeah, I think that would be. I mean, for me, my personal opinion, I think that's way better than any alternative.
Okay.
This is
Do you
ironically
think
something that I
Trump
couldn't
made a
even-
mistake.
Sorry.
Or I was gonna say, do you think that Trump made a mistake pulling out of the TPP?
I'm sorry.
Do you think Trump made a mistake walking away from the Trans-Pacific Partnership that would have had basically free trade with a lot of our Asian Pacific allies?
It's hard to say, because I think a lot of the trade deals right now are not slanted heavily enough to our side, and we tend to prop up and I mean, we support a lot of other nations at the detriment to the United States, and I'm tired of it.
How do we support
I think this is-
Vietnam or the Philippines at the detriment to the U.S. with trade?
What do you mean? How do you not? How is it beneficial for us to have Nikes made in Vietnam?
We
Because
have
we're not the
access to
one
cheaper
then making
goods
the
and-
fucking like weave.
Yeah. So Vietnam or whatever in the Philippines, they have a lot of they're factor endowments. They're abundant in labor, so they specialize in a lot of labor-intensive goods, and that lets U.S.
Correct.
consumers have access to cheap Nike shoes, and that's good for U.S. consumers. And then it frees up other resources in the U.S. to go do other more productive things. So you end up raising wages.
Are you sure?
Raising wages. You end up increasing exports as well because now Vietnam has dollars that they then spend on U.S. goods and assets. Yeah, there are a lot of gains from trade.
Are you sure that that's what's happening?
I am 90%
What are
sure.
you- what are
Yes,
you
I'm very
asking?
confident.
Well, so here's the thing. So you say that those shoes are made over there cheaper. And sure, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what the rate of a pair of shoes in fucking Vietnam is right now. But
Well, do you think
we
if you
can
made them in
things- wait, hold
America
on.
that we'd be
You know,
able to
you
make
are
them at the same price?
I love how you interrupt.
Well, can you just answer my question?
I think that's why I married a Chinese woman that doesn't interrupt.
What? What is happening?
Oh my
let's
God.
keep the race stuff out of this. No race stuff. I don't know where this is coming from. But,
Can you just answer the question?
Yeah, just answer
didn't
the
hear
question.
the question.
All right, let her ask your question, then you can respond. And
That's,
then,
that's awesome that you
responding to
realize that
Nonfon.
you
How
were
can I
being
re-
like antagonistic without even listening to my question. It said, do you really think that people could make that here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
You
we
think that
could,
people
but you're
wanna be
confusing.
making
You think that we
shoes.
can't make here.
You think that people want to be making
Hold on,
widgets
Greg.
here?
Great. You're correct in that we could make it here. We could probably make more shoes in Vietnam here than Vietnam could actually. But that is an
Sure.
opportunity cost, right? The same reason that you
hold
don't
on,
do
hold on,
everything
hold on,
yourself,
hold on.
right? You
Before
specialize in
you-
producing one
affordably-
thing.
Before you run away, stop. Before you run away, what
No-
do you
nobody's running away.
think the cost of making a pair of shoes here versus in
I don't know.
Vietnam
How much?
is? Asking you. You said that it's better.
Well, I don't know.
made
How
the
much?
claim.
You're the one who brought it up. How much?
You made the claim. I'm asking the question.
You
Answer
have
the
no
question.
idea. So you have no idea?
Obviously, that's why I'm fucking asking you. You made the claim. Don't be
Well,
an
look,
idiot.
Grid, the market has clearly spoken here. There's a revealed preference. Shoes are made in Vietnam because the market
What the
aggregates
fuck?
information for us, so
Well,
we don't
maybe
actually
that's
have to
because
have the
government
information.
subsidizes that.
Do you have
Do you
any
think
evidence
people
of that, or
want
you're
to
just
be
making that
making
up?
shoes?
What-
Do you think?
problem
Do you
is,
think?
I don't know what
do
those
you want to be
external
making
factors are.
shoes? Do
Let me
you
just-
want to be making
I'm
shoes?
asking you to prove that shoes can be made cheaper in Vietnam than here.
Okay, I'll
Are
let.
there
I'll,
shoe
Prove
factories here?
that? What do
Are
you
there
think? The
shoe
fact that they
factories
all-
here?
There is
Are
already
there
a
shoe
proof of that.
factories
one second,
here?
Tiberius. I see your hand. I'll get you in. One
The
second.
fact that they're already made there is clearly, when we live in a capitalist
Are there shoe
environment, a
factories
proof
here? I just want to know.
that
Come
is
on.
clearly cheaper.
Georgia Boot is
They're-
Georgia Boot in
they're-
Georgia or is it in Vietnam?
There are obviously shoe factories here, but that's just because of the.
Really?
That's just yeah, I
hell,
understand,
mate.
but that's just because opportunity cost increases with
Well-
scale, right? The more shoe production you have in the U.S., the more factors, land, labor, capital, ideas that you're going to displace from other sectors. So
well,
it makes
you-
sense why
you-
some
hold on,
shoe
I
production
knew
would be
right.
here.
Hold on,
but
hold on. I want to jump in here just a little bit, real quick, and I'm going to give it to Tiberius. Just for like, let me give you an example here, right? Like, I bought some boots the other day because I own a leather company, and I like to custom
Were they
them.
cowboy
Right?
boots?
They were cowboy boots, and I wanted to like custom them up, and so I bought them from like a Vietnamese place, and had them shipped, and I bought the same like kind of like design from a Mexican discotheque kind of place where they sell the boots, and the quality difference was drastically different, and they were about the same price, right? And the ones from the Mexican place was way higher quality, and it was way cheaper. Like, well, not way cheaper. It was about the same price, right? And so I'm kind of interested, like, when we're saying these things, like, can we make them here? Well, the answer seems to be yes, because I doubt that these guys, maybe if they were getting them from Mexico, maybe, but I don't see how that's any fundamentally different from why we couldn't open that here. It kind of, when they have similar wages compared to Vietnam, which is basically slave labor. They have sweatshops that's legal over there, and if we're able to produce that in Mexico with comparable labor prices, how does that not indicate we couldn't build something here, I'll let. I mean, Nonfon. I know you want to object to that, and then Tiberius. You go.
Well, again, I mean, I would just focus on we can make it here. There's just an opportunity cost to doing so, right? Like, like literally almost any good other than like fruits that maybe can only be grown in the tropical climates or whatever could be made in the U.S. But, you know, the people making shoes in the U.S. are people that otherwise could have been educated, could have gone on to engineering, could have gone on to work for Apple, could have gone on to do much higher productivity things that are much higher up in the value chain. And that is why,
that your
service,
Well,
the
hold
service
on.
economy
Or
argument,
even working
right?
at like
Well,
hold
the
on,
service
also
economy,
looking
yes,
at,
but
like,
also
a factory that combines
So you have a
those
problem
things
with
as
people
well.
that dig ditches?
Well, hold on. I want to actually, that's kind of where I'm going. Nonfon.
Well,
I want Nonfon to
kinda.
answer this.
No, nobody has a
I'll
problem
go
with
first.
people who dig ditches.
Okay,
You're a
get
bad
what I
person
do.
if
I'm
you're really
coming
gonna
to
say
you,
something like
fine.
that.
I just want you to answer this, though, quick, Nonfon. Do you have like I know you advocated for just now, like these other jobs over one or the other. If they're like equal pay, just like first say, why is one preferred over another? Like a service industry job over like I don't know, an industrial job or an agriculture job. Why do you see that as a preferred outcome if the pay is comparable or the benefits are comparable?
I don't intrinsically view any job as like necessarily more valuable than another one. You know, I just don't believe.
said you did.
I essentially believe the government shouldn't
No, I think that
interfere.
you're
We should
being
just let the
bad faith in your
market. We should let the
phrasing.
market
You're-
I'm just,
shift
I'm
the
not trying to do that.
composition
I'm
of
just
jobs
asking you
over
to, like, maybe
time.
clarify for me here. Yeah, go ahead. Finish that up. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead. Just
Me
repeat
or
that, Nonfon.
Nina?
Repeat
Yeah,
Nonfon.
it's basically my position is trade has all these other benefits, and it seems like trade probably in aggregate is going to increase wages. Trade is probably going to increase
Sure.
long run growth and all these things. So it seems like it makes sense to basically not have the government artificially protect one type of job over another type of job. We should just let the market grow over time, and I'm sure the composition of the jobs will shift. But I am also, I've told you guys before, I think trade is maybe responsible for like 20% of the decline in manufacturing employment, and I think the rest has to do with automation. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious how you thinking that. Go ahead, Tiberius.
All right, just to avoid the economic doctrine conversation, we're going to put that over there, is that when it comes to the TTP conversation, because I thought that was the only constructive part we were going with it. Yes. Trans-Pacific Partnership, this was a deal that got axed in 2018, 2017. But it was basically it was
What Gibbs asked me about. Or no, pardon me, Nonfon asked me.
Nonfon had asked him about his opinion.
I'm not familiar.
Basically, free trade deal with anyone who touches the Pacific was able to get in on this. So it was everyone from the United States to Chile, right? And then also on the other side, so Australia all the way up to Russia. Everyone was eligible. The United States pulled out. And basically the conversation was that Trump does not believe in free trade, or at least wants to put limitations.
Well, why did they
it.
pull out?
Basically, we don't want to integrate. We don't want to. Excuse me. We didn't want a deal where the Chinese were going to be involved going forward.
Well, no, you're saying every other country pulled out, right?
No,
the U.S. pulled out. They actually went. Almost every other country went on to sign. Almost every other country went on to sign the deal, the TPP. Yeah. They called it the CPTPP. And the reason I brought it up is because if you look at eventually like the UK got into the TPP, and if you look at the agreements that they made to join the TPP, the UK like reduced their tariffs on a lot of exports from other countries. If the US was just joined the TPP, we would have gotten a better trade deal than what Trump is going to get by threatening tariffs on the UK. And I also think it is an anti-China strategy to have free trade with countries that are
it makes sense.
semi-adversarial to China. So that's why I asked Grid that question. Yeah.
Again, ignoring the economic doctrine conversation, is that I had both praises and problems with the TPP. Because it was everyone can largely join in if you have any possessions in the Pacific, right? Well, I'm cool with trading with Japan and South Korea and Taiwan and hell, even the Philippines, Australia, right? Hey, Chile, you welcome to get on board with this.
Fly in my room.
I'm not sure about Vietnam. I definitely don't want to trade with China anymore. North Korea can go suck sand. The Russians technically border the Pacific, so they can fucking pound sand too.
Was North Korea part of the TPP?
No, but they were eligible for membership. And that's kind of my argument.
They would have never been accepted.
They would never been a thing.
I assume every country is eligible, right?
Anyone who has possessions that go to the Pacific Ocean. That's who was
okay.
eligible.
So then, yeah, they would potentially. Okay.
So like half the planet,
Gotcha.
and the reason why this scares me is not because it's like, oh, not only North Korea actually bad, but also I am scared shitless of what is happening in Vietnam, but also in China, where China was growing. They looked like they were going to have a liberal movement, and then it got squashed by big data because they're communists. I am going to be critiquing leftism here to a little bit. But these more authoritarian leftist governments that I think that you would not appreciate, being a Democrat, they are using the power of the
Wait,
state
do you
to
think
crush the shit out of
Democrats
people.
wait, hold on. I got to stop you here.
Uh-huh.
You're kind of like making a little bit of a straw man here. Do you really think that Democrats like China?
Some do, for sure.
I'm sure some do. Correct.
Yeah. Anyway, what I was more going at is that I was saying that if you are a democratic socialist or a DemSoc, right?
Sock them.
Soc Dem. Sorry, you're still definitely in the democratic movement.
Sure.
Yeah, we appreciate democracy. We appreciate republics and the rule of law. China is not abiding by that. They should not be encouraged to trade with us. And they've gotten rich, they've gotten powerful because we did trade with them. And now we have a major problem on our hands.
We've also gotten rich and powerful trading with them. That's how trade.
it's
It's
mutually
literally
beneficial.
trade.
Okay, so yeah,
Are you thinking? Are you in the Trump school of thinking that like for some reason trade is a zero-sum game?
it's not a zero-sum game at all. What I'm putting in here is two different things. Number one is that even if it hurt us, keeping China bricked
It
like
doesn't?
it was a win.
You
We
were
empowered
talking about
them-
a completely different thing. If we're gonna completely talk about different things, then let me talk about this. Do you
Okay.
think that we are not safer with the fact that we have economic ties to China? China is a capitalist.
not.
As much as people think, you unironically think that China is like, I don't know, communist.
They're fascist is what they actually are.
Yeah.
Yes, they're capital fascist. They're capitalist fascists, right? Would you agree with that or no?
Considering fascists hate capitalism, that's weird, but okay, sure.
No, fascism has nothing to do with capitalism. Fascism is just a mechanism of control.
Do we really need to discuss this? Yeah,
Yeah,
look,
I was gonna say,
I think it is. I think it is
let me
important to
just finish my
say.
point. The point being, like, do you really think that China? Okay, let's just grant me this. We don't have to argue this.
Maybe.
China is a capitalist country. They like doing trade because it makes their country stronger via the fact that it's their capitalist mechanism that their economy works under. Will you grant me that?
For charity's sake, sure. Where are you going with this?
Okay, let's do that. So let's imagine two capitalist countries, America and China. Both of them want to benefit off of their capitalistic trade, right? So why would they? Do you not think that on a global scale that peace could be attained in a sense of the fact that you don't want to fuck up that capitalistic trade that's happening within your two countries?
To a degree, it can, but the problem is it has a blowback effect. Is that you can
How?
actively empower malevolent actors who will take their wealth and in a
But the
time of
problem-
crisis,
no,
they'll
the-
throw it
the-
at somebody.
Yeah, but the problem is that, like, again, with capitalism does have a marriage to democracy, where if you have a bunch
Sure.
of different companies that, like, okay, well, you might have like 2 companies or 20 companies that might want to support that, but there might also be like 1,000 companies that don't support that. So then they can put their economic wealth behind disagreeing with that position.
I'm with you up to a point. Hold on, let me finish this grid and then I'll go with you. And then I'll just turn this over. I'm with you to a point. The problem is that we have...
And then good. So go ahead.
Okay, the problem is that we've empowered authoritarian capitalists in your framing. And these people have no problems about taking the most malevolent actors and elevating them into being, number one, kleptocrats, but also the worst part is that they stifled their own system to the point where, like, yeah, they welded people during COVID in their houses. Like, they welded them into their
I don't know
apartments.
that relevant to what I'm saying.
I think it is because it's like we empowered.
No, we're talking about business. We're talking about business.
Business does go along with ethics, right?
We're talking
You
about
believe
money.
this.
We're talking about money here. We're not
We're
talking
also
about people getting welded into their houses. No.
All right. Well, I'm trying to keep this as bare bones as I can, but like business has ethics to it,
Because you're not
right?
paying attention. Okay.
Okay, well, let me just.
All right.
let me
I'm gonna
Wait,
pause it.
I do want to.
Hold on.
Okay.
Pause. This is a good pause. Cal, we're talking about America versus China right now.
Hi, Cal. Good to see you, my
Thank you for
guy.
being. I'm glad you got to be here. I know you had to come late. Appreciate you for being here. Go ahead and give your opening on China and America and what you think's
Cal's the
going
only
on.
man I've ever seen that seems like he's getting younger.
Hey, that's a good problem to have.
Just slowly dyeing my beard and black.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not 100% sure like where you are like in the arc of that conversation,
Just
but I'll
attack
just
from
say
wherever you want.
We're
yeah,
saying you
that's
too.
okay. I'll say based on what I've heard so far is I do think maybe I'm staking a position between the two people that I just like heard most recently, which is to say, I think it does make sense to have targeted tariffs with places like China, only because there's certain behavior that we want to encourage and certain behaviors that we want to discourage, and we have to like figure out where those are. Like, for instance, there's for a long time there's been a conversation as to whether the Kyoto Accords and specifically now, more recently, the Paris Accords, were even worth doing because it's really impossible to incentivize behavior with them. Like, there's really no teeth to those treaties. But if you tied trade to them and said, okay, like your ability to achieve most favored nation status or the percentage of specific tariffs that you're going to have is going to be looked at individually. And if you reduce your emissions, then your tariff barriers go down. You can pull those levers at different points and get the kind of behavior that you want. Not just in American interest, but certainly we want that. But in the example that I'm giving about climate, in the world interest. And I think that there's a lot of other ways in which China's competition is unfair. One of them is that they don't have the same kind of labor laws that we have. So if we had tariffs that would reward them like treating their workers better, which also makes it easier to compete with them because it's closer to a level playing field, that sort of thing. Those kinds of tariffs, I would be for. Obama had massive solar panel tariffs, for instance, for which he got attacked by a lot of people on the left because of what they thought it might do to the solar industry going forward in the United States. We had similar, we had the CHIPS Act, for instance, which used trade to some extent as part of the large actions that were authorized by the CHIPS Act in order to get China to behave in ways that we wanted it to, or to create alternatives to it. Blanket tariffs are the problem because it's not a lever that you can pull. But even with Trump, like when we saw these tariffs that went back down to 10% on one side and 30% on the other side, it was because 20% on the 30% side had to do with what Trump was trying to do with fentanyl, right? I think the fentanyl stuff is probably, I don't think China's trade policy had a whole lot to do with fentanyl in the United States. But fine, if you want to say that if you do these things with fentanyl, then this 20-point tariff goes away or whatever, those kinds of targeted tariffs at least have some logic to them, and I can sort of understand it. It's the blanket tariffs, particularly ones that treat every country in the world as as bad of an actor as China is, that makes no sense to me. Like, if you can change these things to targeted tariffs and then you can make it rational in terms of what it is we expect from China, I would be a lot more sympathetic to what's going on.
All right, we're going to go to Grid, and then we're going to go Nonfon, then I'll open it up again. Go ahead, Grid.
Yeah, and I'm going to kind of go off. I'm going to be maybe a little bit harsher than iCal and more along lines of Tiberius. China is a bad actor in the world, on the world stage. They just are. They steal IP. They literally have, for a lot of the cheaper products, they literally have people basically in slave labor. And the fact that any of you support that is absolutely disgusting. I don't want to give China $1. I mean, as a matter of fact, I would sell my property there tomorrow if that were technically possible. You guys just don't get it with how bad it is. Now, and I'm going to say this because and I'll just relate this just really quickly. years ago I was going to do a private label engine parts deal, and because my wife speaks Chinese, I was in Shenzhen. That's where they're made. I went to the factories. Those factories are amazing. They're modern. They're cool. All the people run around in jumpsuits. They all look alike and are all dressed alike. And it's far and away much more professional than American than a lot of American manufacturing that I had been exposed to. The reason we didn't do it was the buy-ins and some other things. But then I started to really dig down deep into how China does its business and how they third shift manufacturers or purchasers and designers.
What is third shifting manufacturers?
Well, third shifting means that they make whatever product you give them to make, they make it for you for 2 shifts, and then they run a third shift off the books of the exact same product to the exact same specifications and sell it under a private label.
So it's like stealing your IP, basically, is the idea.
Well, it's just basically they sell your product for half the price that you're selling it for. And so I have a real problem with the way that most, and not most, a lot of business gets done in China. Now, China has tried very hard to chase out, stamp out, whatever you want to say, the corruption, but it's just kind of innate, especially when you get into the cheaper product levels. And Tiberius is right, ICAO's right. You just have to punish them in some way. That's all. We keep looking at this through Western eyes, and we can't. And I think Tiberius actually was really kind in his estimation. And I've mellowed a little bit here because I had to sit here. I actually have a question for my chat for the panel, if that's cool.
Sure. I want to add one. So yeah, you ask a question, and I'm going to say something. Then it's going to Nonfon. Go ahead.
Yeah. And this is actually probably more for a non-fun. If the economy is bad and you have to change a deficit, is it worse to put the burden on a specific product rather than a blanket tax or subsidy? Pardon me.
And then you can respond to that non-fun as well. But I just want to add that part of what
the panel, but I think it's mostly non-fun's a guy, right?
Sure.
He's the economics guy.
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing to that. It's also part of what Grid said about the stealed IP. One of the other nefarious factors is that they'll wait until you see a certain market share, that is yours. You'll see, he's making X amount of dollars on this, and then what they'll do is they'll just rip it if you part own it, like the straight IP, and do what they're doing. And part of the reason why that's so nefarious is a company like, say, Grid. I don't know what he does exactly, but say he made, I don't know, propellers, and they're like, okay, I have the special IP on this propeller. Well, China's not gonna recognize that. They see it's made this margin, and before he's recouped his losses on R&D, they'll go out and produce their thing and sell it worldwide at a much cheaper cost, and then he can't even compete because it's the exact same product. And a name's only worth so much. That's kind of part of what he's alluding to, is it's like an instant L for the non-Chinese company. But go ahead, Nonfon. You can respond to both of those things.
Okay, there's 5 different things I have to respond to, but so what I wanted to interject, what I wanted to interject a little earlier between Nina and Tiberius is I do think there is at least mixed evidence that free trade increases peace between nations. Obviously, having economic ties to another nation is going to stop you from wanting to go to war with them. Now, there are obviously national security issues. We probably shouldn't be relying on China for batteries, because in the event of war of Taiwan or China, we would be cut off from a supply of batteries, cut off from our supply of drones, and we should probably be doing something to onshore that production here. I'm basically convinced at this point that tariffs are rarely actually optimal, and subsidies are often better or whatever. And then on Grid's point about slave labor, look, there's no reason to believe that slave labor is actually good and mutually beneficial because it's involuntary. But I would say, if we want to set up a conversation about sweatshops at some point, I am pro sweatshop, baby. Sweatshops provide a better living standard than the areas around them. A lot of times the only chance for these countries to actually develop and interact in the world economy is to have sweatshops and make cheap goods or whatever. That increases their growth over time, and that'll actually reduce long run child labor. A lot of times the alternative for these countries is to be a poor agrarian society, essentially indefinitely, without trade and without sweatshops. I would also say it's.
Just let him finish. You got a few. He's been waiting, and then you can go ahead. Go ahead, finish out.
on the combating China and all that stuff. Listen, I brought this up earlier. I think real anti-China trade policy would be similar to the TPP. I think Trump made a mistake, going away from that. I think if we want to combat China, we should have free trade with our allies and all that stuff. And like I said, the deal that Trump is getting with these other nations. First of all, Japan wasn't even able to get a deal in the non-legally binding agreement that the UK has said is the scope of the deal they want to sign. It's actually worse than the deal we would have got if we just stayed in the TPP, because the UK joined the TPP and they agreed to reduce tariffs on all the exports coming from the TPP countries. As for your question of if the economy is bad and we need to fix a deficit, is it better to have a burden on specific products or blanket tariffs? Is that the question? Like, you might have to clarify. Are you talking about the trade deficit or budget deficit?
I gotta scroll back up, but just give me one second.
I wouldn't view the trade deficit as a problem. I don't think the economy is holistically bad right now. And I think insofar as Trump backs away from his tariffs, it will only get better. But certainly the economy is worse than it would be if Trump had never mentioned tariffs. I think that's basically undeniable. But
yeah.
So I'm curious, the idea of sweatshops. So I will agree. I will agree that when you look at it through a Westerner's viewpoint, the fact that somebody makes the equivalent of $80 US a month to an American sounds horrible, but in context where they actually live, that's probably that, and I've got a really cool story about that I'll tell you.
And that's what Trump wants to bring back to here, baby.
So the I can't find where he.
Where's the topic go? Can someone remind me what the hell we were on?
Yeah, I don't remember where he
got.
Okay, that's fine. We can move on to the next one. We got one more.
Wait, hold on. I do want to add one final thing. Just one final thing for everyone to remember.
Blanket subsidy.
Yeah, add your one final thing, and then we'll move on to the next one because I
have one final thing too.
Okay,
so
go
one
ahead.
final thing. I want.
Yeah.
Everyone in the audience should remember this. Everyone in this panel should remember. A tax on imports is equivalent to a tax on exports. It is called Lerner symmetry theorem. So just remember, anytime Trump strikes a trade deal where we still have a 10% tariff on the UK or whatever, even if the UK reduces tariffs on our exports, a tax on imports is equivalent to a tax on exports. So Trump is still taxing our exports if he leaves tariffs on other countries. Look up Lerner symmetry theorem.
Bullshit. Anyway, go on.
That's not bullshit.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that if this conversation were to have gone on longer, like this list of things that China does that is bad, which is the IP theft, there's actually, I looked it up the other day. There were 7 things that Trump wanted to address, the complaints that he had with China that he wanted to deal with on this. And yet we just hit this 90-day deal where we dropped our tariffs now down to even below what they were under the Biden administration. And so we haven't achieved any of those things. The IP theft is still going on. There's nothing in that deal like addresses that. The way that they treat like their labor issues and their environmental issues or any of the other issues that were supposed to be addressed with these tariffs. If we're going back to status quo anti-tariffs or even lower than status quo anti-tariffs without addressing any of those issues, then if you're going to say that Trump was right in the beginning to say we need these maybe even permanent tariffs in order to address this issue and get sort of China out of the game, then you can't like this new deal that was just announced, which takes us back to where we were before without any concessions.
Well, I don't. I mean, I think that Tiberius is right. Trump is not doing enough. I agree with Tiberius.
Do we all agree here that Trump has done nothing?
No, he's done. He's very clearly
with China.
done
Well,
things.
sorry, with China specifically.
He has not gotten
In
meaningful
term
concessions.
2, I will say yes.
Turn 2, yes. With the tariffs, he's gotten nothing.
Yeah, with term or in a second term, yes.
I think
I mean,
it's
there's no
an adventure.
concessions, right? I
Well-
mean, it's just we dropped the
Right.
tariffs
No
back down to
concessions.
10%, and we're right back where we were before.
Well, hold on. You say
It's
that.
getting
All right,
praised
okay,
because a
hold
lot
on,
of
I
free
got-
traders like the fact that
Well,
we're going back to
I know
that.
we're about to move on, but I do take a little bit of umbrage with that. All right, so this is the math. This is how this has gone down. I just had a whole fun debate on Monday about this. I got yelled at quite a bit and muted a whole lot. So we broke out the. I don't know where my fucking bullshit board is at the moment, so I can't do the visual with you. So all right, these are what they started at. We started at a 3% export tariff on China. They had an 8. We bumped it up to
Wait,
135.
what do you mean started out?
So we had the tariffs directly between us and China, right? They on their side they had 8% on our goods, and we had a
The
3%.
Trump tariffs.
Yeah, from back whenever the first term. Okay, his first term, right? And we had 3%. Then come
You
along.
mean pre-2017?
Yeah, okay, yes. So moving on, he comes up to we go all the way up now to what 135 on our side, and they bumped it up to 125. After that's all said and done, going in, they're down to 10%, which is higher than their 8%. But we are now at 30%, according to this deal. That's a 27% increase over what we originally started with, and 20% higher than what they have now. That sounds like something and a significant hit to their trade. So when we argue he's done nothing, that is a pretty significant change from 3% to 8 to 10% to 30.
Yeah,
I mean,
Why?
but remember, it's actually 10 to 10 plus the 20% fentanyl thing, right? So if they do whatever if they resolve the fentanyl thing, then it's back to 10-10.
well, yeah, right, and that's where this debate comes down to. If he's done something, is it not enough? That's kind of what that y'all are at versus, I guess, what
If they do something, it'll be fentanyl.
not enough.
Yeah.
It's like nothing at all. I don't know. I guess that's
Well.
But moving on to the last one, let's talk about Trump versus the drug companies and slashing drug prices. What do we think of this? Let's start with you, Grid, and then we'll go in a circle here.
I don't know that I have like a really strong. I mean, I don't know.
Heat it up then.
I think the I have an issue with drugs in the first place, man. Like I don't know.
Okay.
Are we talking about the fentanyl thing, or maybe
All
right,
right, moving
zoned
on.
out a minute?
No, the price controls on the.
Oh, I'm
or
sorry, I
you
zoned
might not
out for a
wanna-
minute. I apologize.
Yeah. The
What are
Trump
you
price.
talking about, Gibbs?
Trump-
Here, Gibbs, that way.
Yeah, listen,
It's
it's the
got
Trump.
twice as much to say as I normally would, so it'll balance.
That's
out.
fine. Yeah, it's Trump versus. Yeah, I'll let you start us off, it's Trump
Yeah,
versus
Thank
the
you. I turn the
the
volume up so I can hear.
I appreciate it. It's Trump versus the drug companies. Basically, he's saying that they're going to be restricted on their prices. I think the big thing is they're going to require
Yes.
them to sell to the U.S. public at the same price they would sell them to other countries. But I'll let Ika go into it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was listening to actually Steven Crowder on this the other day, and he said something that I thought was super interesting. So he talked about how in Europe they have much lower drug prices than we have here, and it's not fair because they used socialism to like get their prices down because they you couldn't use like the free market principles to get to whatever manufacturers could sort of naturally sell the prices for, because the government was able to come in and intervene and bring those prices low. And that he said it's taking advantage of the United States because we're the ones paying for all of the R&D because all the other companies are negotiating drug prices and we're not. All of that was factually true. Like what he was describing was factually true. But then his argument was, well, we shouldn't let them take advantage of our capitalist system because it's our capitalist system that's allowing all these drugs to exist in the first place because we're throwing so much money into it. And as a result, we can't keep letting them get away with it. And without actually using the word, what he was basically saying is it's not fair that they get to use socialism and we don't. So let's get some socialism over here. And it seems to me that, yeah, in sort of a roundabout way, like I'm not sure about the details of the mechanisms in which it'll happen if it's going to work, because we can try to negotiate prices, or we could try to link prices in that way. But if they choose not to sell at that price point, not much we can do because he's linking us to the lowest price in the market, not the median price in the market, which is something that companies would be. In other words, that could result in shortages. That would be my main strategy. But if he adapted this to where we negotiated in ways that in ways that Medicaid and Medicare should have always been negotiating drug prices, then I wouldn't have many problems with it at all. Or even just importing like Canadian drugs. That was a plan that Trump at one point supported, and Biden later on supported it, and then Trump stopped supporting it. I don't know who supports it now, but it makes sense to me that we sort of leverage these negotiations that are happening in other countries by allowing goods to flow from those countries. Two things that are complicating that. Number one, a trade war with Canada is going to make that much more difficult to do, and number two, it would just mean that we're leveraging socialist policies in ways that allow us to just not use the language of it. But ultimately, what we're doing is wanting to get the benefits of the government negotiations that the EU and other countries were able to achieve.
Yes.
Yeah, I gotta throw out some level of I don't know. Medical is not my wheelhouse. Pharmaceuticals are not really my wheelhouse. The only thing I can relate to is chemicals, and I don't get this fucking advanced. When it comes to my own politics, right? I don't really care for the pharmaceutical industry as writ large because it's corrupt as fuck. But I don't know how this particular piece of legislation / directive from executive order is supposed to work. Talking points wise, it's been what I've been hoping for a long time. It's just some American president's like, nah, we're not going to let you have a medical license to produce anything here if you're going to keep selling to the Europeans at fucking 1/10 the price. I don't know how he's trying to solve this problem, but he's getting at a problem that I very much have. So I can at least give him that. But is this going to work? I have no fucking idea. Not remotely any idea.
Nonfon.
Yeah, it's going to take me 3 months to develop a full opinion on this, okay? But I'm reading about it now. So I have a lot of unanswered questions. So basically my position right now is I would lean probably like 60% against it, because I do believe that there is a lot of evidence that suggests that if you decrease the expected profits of pharmaceutical companies, you decrease the amount they spend on R&D. There's evidence from this, if you know, from the Medicare negotiations under Biden, from Medicare negotiations that like states have done. There seems to be a lot of evidence for that. My question then would be, how effectively can government subsidies offset the reduction in R&D? Like, there's a lot of more socialist-leaning people I talk to that just say we should just socialize most drug research and development. I intuitively feel like the government would be less efficient at that than the private market, but I don't know for sure. So I would say contingent. So contingent on subsidies being effective, I might support it. But I will say Trump is absolutely not going to do that. He seems to not like the NIH and funding medical research. So Trump doing it, I'm against. And price discrimination, just generally speaking, is not super bad. Like, universities price discriminate a ton because they have very high fixed cost. And, you know, if a student can't afford to pay the full sticker price at a college, they'll offer financial aid or reduce prices, because adding an additional student to the classroom just adds to profits a lot more than it adds to cost, because they're paying the professor anyway. They already paid to build the building. Adding an additional student has very low marginal cost. So it can make sense to price discriminate. And in the same way, it makes sense for pharmaceutical companies to price discriminate, to charge cheaper prices to Europe, charge cheaper prices to Africa than it does in the US, because our consumers are richer and pharmaceutical research has very high fixed cost.
Nina.
I think that when it comes to like what we're talking about, like lowering the price of pharmaceuticals, it sounds on its face like a good thing. I think we've kind of all covered that in a way. But like the way that they're gonna do it, it's like, oh, this murderer is gonna find a way to do something. Like it's like you kind of like raise an eyebrow there, like, oh well, this guy I clearly don't trust to be able to do this, and it does seem like the way that they're trying to do it is completely untenable. And it does like fuck up R&D. My sister is somebody who has done cancer research. She's dedicated her life to this. She's done cancer research for almost like 20 years. As much as it was like a joke when I got married recently, and we were like, we gotta find somebody for her to get married to, because she's spends too much time working. And these people are people who actually do a lot of work in this type of stuff, and I don't think that Trump's really trying to advocate for R&D like we're talking about, because that's what she's doing, right? Like there are some drugs like I guess I would say like insulin. I think that being at a certain price makes sense because it's a drug we know is what it is. It's not like a unique thing. Adderall, another one. We don't. It's not. But the thing is, what they're talking about is like just fucking R&D, which again just means like looking into new stuff, and that is not what we should be doing because America is a gigantic beacon for finding new drugs that help with all types of things and novel, I guess you would say, things. And it doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense the way he's trying to go about it.
All right, Grid, you got thoughts now?
Yeah, I got you, man. I apologize. I zoned out, and but I actually had a conversation with with a good friend of mine the other day about this because he considers this the worst form of price fixing, and whereas I'm actually kind of all for it. I have been on kind of both sides of the drug sale kind of deal where I have a friend of mine. I worked for a brief time with a friend of mine who in California they develop some drugs, I guess, for I don't even know what they were for, to be honest. I just helped out, but it was expensive. I mean, it really was, and it's and a lot of those companies have gone out. A lot of the smaller companies have gone out of business. So on one side, I can see the argument against this kind of price evening, but I don't understand why the American people bear the brunt of the cost. I don't think Crowder was accurate with the idea that the socialist networks in other countries buy. I don't know if that's. I don't know how accurate that claim that Crowder made. I didn't see that. I'm going to have to go look for that. My guess is that they make a lot of money off of us, and our regulatory agencies often add additional prices that obviously the people making the drugs are not going to absorb, right? Like they're just going to pass that on, as Nonfon says, to the consumer, and you're just not going to ever lower it. And again, my friend was like, "This is the worst form of price fixing. I can't believe Trump said this." And actually, his biggest claim was this is the kind of thing that Bernie Sanders was a big advocate for. And so Trump, and Trump's gaining all of this criticism for something that Bernie Sanders would have been praised for. So I think that's very odd. Beyond that, I honestly don't have I'm kind of with Tiberius. I don't really have a huge feeling about this. I just don't. I don't know that.
I mean,
At some point, I'm going to care because I'm going to need drugs. But beyond that,
I don't think you understand what you're talking.
Yeah,
I will
just
say
wanted
it
to-
feels like. Oh, sorry. Do you?
So I just want to respond quickly to the idea of that we need all of this money for R&D, and we do. But what I don't understand is like we don't need to be the only country in the world paying for this R&D when everyone else is negotiating prices.
I agree with you.
I think that that's part
agree.
of the issue here. Like I think that this deal sort of started a conversation that's worth having. I don't know if I want to go all the way Bernie Sanders about it or not. But I do think that there's got to be some happy medium in here, whether the world figures out how to kick in enough of a fair price to where America can sort of get closer to equalizing. I understand, like, we generate a lot of income in the United States, but the EU does too. And I don't think the prices that we're paying for drugs
Yeah,
are proportionate to our national income in that way.
Yeah, I think the WHO used to contribute to it quite a bit, and again, Trump pulling out of that was fucking catastrophe levels of losing our R&D capabilities, because I do believe they used to contribute quite a bit.
So I think we did an experiment in this country with regards to this, because we used to have a question over the obscene amount of profits that the insurance companies would make. And so what happened was, under the ACA, they made a new rule that said insurance companies who want to participate in the ACA have to limit their net profits. And this is, I'm sorry, no, gross profits. They have to have no more than 20% gross profit. Anything they make above that, they have to issue in refunds to on their premiums to their customers. That way, they ensured that they could charge the prices they needed to charge in order to make a profit and not go out of business, but also not make obscene amounts of profit. And so they were. I think you could do something like that with pharmaceutical industries as well, to show that, yeah, you can get your fair share. You get like a great runaway drug, you can get a solid 20% gross profit, right? But to turn that into a 300% gross profit or something, maybe that is like something that needs to end.
You all are way nicer to these people than I am.
Well, I want to hear what.
Well, I do.
Let's go to Nonfon real quick, because I have a feeling Nonfon is about to discover economic conservatism. Go ahead, Nonfon.
Well, that's kind of what I'm going to touch on. Is you guys say like, oh, Trump is getting flack for an idea that Bernie would have done, and to an extent, I'm sure that is happening. But there are also people like my goat, Nicholas Decker, okay, who, when Biden did this, wrote an article explaining why he thought it was bad, and likewise is saying, obviously Trump doing this is bad now. And like the opposite side of that for you, though, is it feels like if Bernie did go through with that, a lot of conservatives would be freaking the fuck out about it and saying this is communism, this is price controls, this is what the Soviet Union did, blah, 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 and would be tearing it down. But because Trump does it, it doesn't feel like you guys are upset about it. And I will also add, America doesn't, just charge or pay more for drugs because we subsidize R&D. To an extent, that's true. But America also, so number one, as a result of that, we get newer drugs. We get drugs faster than other countries. But we also get higher quality drugs, and we also just consume more drugs per capita than like any other country. So there are benefits to us doing that.
That's a problem. Okay, I gotta get in
higher
this.
quality drugs?
Guys,
go ahead.
I've got to take this for a minute. Okay. Y'all are way nicer to the pharmaceutical companies than I can ever get on, and he just hit the number one reason. We are hyper fucking medicated. 66% of adults are on some form of medication, and if anyone doesn't have warning bells screaming when they hear that, like, I think I have a problem with you. Like, this is one of the most politically ingrained, I want to say corrupt, because there's some pretty good indications they have bribed people in the FDA, but, we got to find out if that actually is true or not yet still. There is, like, they advertise everywhere to people who have no idea what they're consuming. And then on top of that, just the vast majority of, literally, a majority of people are on this shit, right? I think they're too big. I think they need to be reined in. I have no problem. I don't like price fixing. I will hit that. But I have no problem with reining these folks in. And I would put it up to straight up extortion. But it would be, hey, look, whatever deal that you can get with us, we'll pay out a normalized price. But if you pay, or if you make a deal with any other government that you will sell them for cheaper, we will revoke your corporate charter and you can fuck off. That is the deal I want with these folks.
That just brings me back to my point, which is like price discrimination makes sense a lot of times. Not only does it increase profits for companies, but it can also increase social welfare. I mean, look. So again, pharmaceutical companies
this is literally
have very
just
high...
GDP go up, and like there's levels where I think we pay incredible social. Hold on. Let me finish. Like, I think we pay an incredible social cost in the medications we throw out. Like, I'm gonna be real, dude. Like this. The opioid
let me elaborate. So, like, clearly...
let's let Nonfon finish here. Hold on.
Like,
Nonfon finish here. No, Grid wants to get a meeting. You go after that as well. Go ahead.
So pharmaceutical companies have very high, like incredibly high fixed costs to develop new drugs, bring that drug to market, and for every one drug they bring to market, like 5 other drugs fail. So they have to recoup that R&D cost, but also they have very low marginal costs. Usually, most drugs once the formula is developed, are very cheap to give out. So I would say clearly a society where pharmaceutical companies are allowed to price discriminate, where they charge very low prices right above marginal cost in Africa, they still get profit from those drugs based on marginal cost. And people in Africa obviously get access to drugs they wouldn't otherwise be able to get. But in America, they price discriminate and charge more because we can afford it. They're able to recoup their R&D cost, and they are able to start use that money to develop new drugs, which benefit America and again Africa. I mean, again, it's the same reason why universities price discriminate. No one seems to have an issue with universities doing price discrimination. I don't see why it's a huge deal that pharmaceutical companies price discriminate, other than I would agree with you, Europe probably does need to spend more on drugs because it does feel like they're free riding a little bit.
I agree with Nina. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So first, I agree with Tiberius again. It's very interesting, but worse about I have to disagree with Nonfon. I'll take a couple of small issues here. First, we don't always get the newest drugs because our FDA drags its fucking feet with approval, and a lot of drugs that are made here cannot be sold to Americans, are shipped overseas or down to Mexico, where Americans then go to buy the drugs that they can't buy here. There's a very
a
famous...
little unrelated.
How is it unrelated?
If you're talking about going to buy
exactly. Shut
that
the fuck
already
up.
exist in Mexico, then it seems completely unrelated to R&D in America.
How is it not related that we can't
Because we're not
get
talking about
new
R&D.
drugs? How?
No, because you're not talking about new drugs. You're not talking about R&D. You're talking about drug trafficking.
No, I'm not.
Okay, well then
go back to sleep. It's okay. The adults will talk. So when Procter and Gamble develops a new drug, and they want to sell it on the American market, they can't oftentimes, especially not in any kind of hurry, because of the FDA. It will not get approval. It takes a long time, unless, as Tiberius said, maybe there's a little bribery involved. I'm not saying it is, but could happen. However, in Europe, those drugs are perfectly legal, and they will buy them. And then Americans go to there to buy them and come back here. And actually, I have a friend of mine a few years ago had to go to Germany for a procedure and medication that he couldn't get here. That's made literally not down the road, but not too far from his house. I mean, this is insanity on the grand scale. And this is one of the reasons why Americans pay such high drug costs in the first place, because we are often our own worst enemies. And Nonfon, I'm not actually supporting the idea that Bernie Sanders' method is right. I'm saying that Trump is doing something that matter of fact, I don't think Trump is correct for doing the price fixing angle. I think that the discussion, as Eichhouse said, needs to be had about these drug prices and about how how our entire drug industry works. And I think that if this is what it takes to start that conversation, then I don't like it, but it is what it is. And if Bernie Sanders were doing this, nobody'd have a problem with it except the right. You're right. We would all be freaking out. But we would do what conservatives do when they get mad. They have they tailgate and drink beer, apparently. So because we don't riot in the streets and burn things down. So, at any rate, I think this is great.
Let's go to Nina. She was next. Go ahead, and then we'll open back up. Go ahead, Nina.
That was fucking wild. It's so obvious you have no fucking clue what you're talking about. I don't even know why you're part of this conversation, because we're
drunk.
Huh?
You seem drunk. You seem out of it. Are you okay?
Let's have a little decorum, guys. Come on, let's back to
those. Oh my God. At least even if I am, I clearly am paying attention with the conversation, because we're talking about healthcare here, my guy. Like, what are you on about with all this bullshit? Like, okay, sorry, let's refocus. What was the initial question so we can refocus?
The Trump versus the drug prices. He's
right.
slashing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Well, then I asked to figure out where the focus was. I don't know why you think that's a bad thing to ask to where the refocus is, but okay.
Okay.
But anyways, let's move on. So yeah, no, I think that it is wildly misguided the way that he's trying to go about it. It doesn't seem like I feel like I'm repeating myself a bit, but like I just don't really think that he has any idea how to actually get anything done. Like at least you can say, as much as you can disagree with this, Biden did get some drug prices like insulin down to a reasonable level and you know why? Because it didn't actually affect R&D. It is a drug that was for a very long time in service. So it wasn't like a novel drug. It was a drug that we absolutely could pay that much for it to be that price. Right? I mean, like, would you disagree with that, my guy?
Rob. Oh yeah, so you
Sorry,
have Grid.
my main detractor.
Grid, do you disagree with that?
Oh, you're asking me? Yeah, I disagree
Correct.
with almost everything you said. I don't think that you're on topic at all, but that's okay.
You really think that you don't think that we could have that we should have capped the price of insulin?
Didn't Trump do that?
Kind of. Trump had like a voluntary price cap under
No,
one
what
subsection
happened
of
was-
Medicare. Biden expanded
Yeah.
it. Biden made it like involuntary, and it covered more
Regardless, I'm
sections
not
of Medicare.
being a campus piece of shit like you are. I'm asking you. Do you think we should have done that?
Should we have forced companies to lower their prices? I don't know about forcing
Correct.
them to, but I certainly believe that the way.
Do
Trump
you
did
think
it,
that we should not have capped the price of insulin?
did we actually cap it?
Basically,
$30.
yeah.
Basically, yeah. Okay.
So,
Let's- no, I don't know
it was
that.
part
I
of what the
don't know
Inflation Reduction
because
Act is.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, stop like being a fucking dipshit about this.
I'm
I'm
not being a
asking you
dipshit. Listen, listen.
Should
Listen.
we?
I've
Should
had enough of this.
we?
You are not even in the damn conversation. We're talking about the cost of R&D for drugs, and I literally told you that
I
the
wonder why
reason
you're being
that we
aggressive
pay
towards
more
me
for
and
drugs
not anybody
has
else,
less
so
to do
Norfolk.
with R&D and the
You
fact that
answer
we
my
spend.
question, you dipshit, motherfucker! Should we or should we have not done that?
Everybody calm down. Everybody calm down. Let's go to Nonfon.
No, I'm totally done with the yelling. I'm just asking, can we get an answer out of him?
Okay.
My answer is that you have not given me anything.
You
to
have no answer. You have no answer. He has no answer. Okay, we can move on.
All right, cool. Nonfon. Go and stay, and then we're gonna go to iCal because he has
Small dick bitch.
All right, Nonfon.
Yeah,
All right.
I was just gonna say my understanding is I think the insulin price cap Biden did was an executive order that did actually cap the price of insulin that you were able to charge consumers, or that they were able to charge Medicaid. And then the Inflation Reduction Act
think you're
allowed
right about
negotiation of like 10 drug prices down a year or whatever. But I would say the negotiation under the Inflation Reduction Act is under some level of coercion, because if they didn't accept the price the government wanted, the government would charge like a 95% tax on all the revenue made from that drug, not the profit made from that drug, just the revenue. So obviously companies are going to accept basically any price the government asks for in that situation. But I don't know. That still could have been good. It would depend on the effects in R&D, which I don't know. But
Well, I think
mean,
there's
there's
no
R&D on-
really R&D on that particular drug, I guess is what my argument would be. And
Well,
that's
yeah,
fair.
but
We
part
can,
of
we
it is
can have
also
a conversation
you're-
related to that.
you know, you're reducing the expected profits of basically all future drugs if you enable Medicare and Medicaid to negotiate down the prices of all the future drugs they develop. So they're going to be less willing to fund things. And there is evidence that it does reduce R&D, but I guess
Are you talking about
like-
government funding or?
I'm talking about like
Right.
private funding. So this is what I brought up, this is what I'm still uncertain on, is how effectively can the
Okay.
government maybe offset any private reduction in R&D with public spending in
Gotcha.
R&D. I don't know the
Yeah,
answer to that right
yeah.
now. So if it was the case that the government is really effective at pharmaceutical R&D, then I'm probably in favor of price caps. If it isn't the case, then I'm probably not in favor of them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think like with the offset of like specific things like insulin or whatever, like I feel like
Yeah.
that's something that would you agree with me that like the government should, figure out, I don't know if I'm repeating exactly what you just said, but like to offset the R&D that would be within their whatever the companies
Yeah,
would determine, to make it like a very reasonable price, like I don't know, like what, $30 or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think that'd be fair. But I will just say the
Okay,
reason I'm
I'd
in
agree
favor
with
of
you
that
on
is
that then.
because essentially what you're doing there is you're shifting the burden of R&D from private pharmaceutical companies to the government. In other words, you're like socializing
That's
the cost
fine,
of
though,
R&D.
right?
And no. So I am 100% in favor of socializing the cost of R&D. You know, I don't think people.
Yeah.
But I feel like
No,
conservatives
I
generally
100% agree
would
with
be
you.
against
Yeah,
socializing R&D cost, and I would like. I would like to point
Can
that
we
out.
move into
Like,
having that conversation? Because I actually really am curious about that, because I think that's. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Shino.
yeah. I was gonna say I want to hear it from Ike here. I know he's been like seriously writing things down here. I know he's
I've been
got
writing
notes.
things down. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
so I
So I was
see him in
thinking
the
about.
background. So let's go to him real quick, and then we can
I
open
was
back
just
up.
thinking about how anything really big that's happened under any president that I can, at least in my lifetime, the things that they accomplished were things that were the opposite of what you would expect from that party. Why? Because it means that you can increase your chances of getting cooperation for the opposite party, and you know that you can also bring some people from your own party along in that direction
What do you
too.
mean?
So, like for George W. Bush, he got PEPFAR done, which was like $1 billion a year to Africa, like for AIDS priorities, something the Republicans like never would have supported if a Democrat had tried to do it, but because it was their own president that did it, they supported it. Medicare Part D was another one that happened under Bush. Clinton was able to balance the budget using those talking about certain methods that would not have been accepted by his own party, except for the fact that he was a Democrat and he was the one suggesting it. Reagan signed the earned income tax credit, which the Republicans never would have done. I don't think. He saved Social Security. He signed the Montreal Protocol. There's so much environmental disaster happening around the world, we forget that we've had successes sometimes. And one of them was acid rain, not a thing anymore because Reagan signed the Montreal Protocol. This is another one of those opportunities, I think, where you have a president who's making a suggestion that his party would absolutely reject if a Democrat supported it. But because he's supporting it, if Democrats were to come back to him with and maybe adjust it to where it's maybe a little bit less risky than the way it is now, there's an opportunity here for something actually big to get done. I just don't know that it will because of the way the parties are interacting with each other in Congress now. It's more toxic environment now than under any of those presidents that I mentioned before.
Grid, go ahead, and then we can go back to what the question was that Nina was wanting to examine.
Yeah, so
was that here?
Nonfon, on the R&D thing, something that's really interesting is that the R&D is obviously done here, but the manufacturing is done in India or China or various other places. And so that's one of the reasons why these other countries also get the drugs even before us or at a lower cost or whatever. So I don't know how much the R&D is necessarily affected, or the R&D cost is necessarily affected by what we're talking, by the little bit of price fixing or whatever we want to call it we can do here. But it's interesting to find out, and private equity is huge into drug manufacturing, like massive.
so?
It's crazy, and so it's interesting that Trump is kind of pushing back. I mean, he's a PE guy. It's interesting that he's taking this stance, in my opinion. I could be totally off base on it because who knows? He may just want to piss them all off. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
Anyway,
like
that's.
there
I just
are
thought
a
it
lot
was
of
interesting to note that the manufacturing is not here, so the R&D costs are burdened here to some degree.
I mean, I sent a source in a chat that shows the U.S. is, generally speaking, an early adopter of drugs. It seems like other countries get drugs later. I think you're just basically wrong on that. And like we do have studies that there are kind of some conflicting things that find that like Medicare price reductions do decrease the amount of R&D spending, do decrease the amount of patents being filed, do decrease the amount of new products introduced. So I think you're basically just wrong on that as well. There's a little bit of nuance into what type of research and development specifically gets, basically gets cut back on. Like, I have a post-Keynesian friend who like sent me a study saying, hey, it looks like really the actual novel medical R&D seems to still continue even with price caps. It's just the sort of like follow-through technology, I think it's called, like improvements to other drugs or whatever, that sometimes is cut back on. And that's not necessarily as bad. That could be, basically a positive trade-off for reducing costs in exchange for not a huge effect on new medical innovation.
Nina, what you were talking, Nina, just before we kind of tangent off there. What were you wanting to refocus the conversation on?
Oh, I've completely lost. I was just listening to the conversation there because I know when I don't know what we're talking about. So I'll go ahead and let you take over the reins here, and then maybe I'll jump back in when we can.
All right, sounds good. Tiberius, any thoughts here? I know you've been silent a while here.
Well, I'm probably just the most anti-pharmaceutical out here. He's going to be like, hey, we're going to stifle innovation, we're going to stifle research if we do certain things. And while I will agree that certain things I don't want to do, I don't want to do price floors. There's other things that, if they happened, I would not cry a bit about. He's going to be like, hey, we're not doing more research. True, but we're also not seeing pharmaceutical companies drop as many checks in Washington. And for me, that's probably more of a win to the American people than anything. So that's my general goal, is that the pharmaceutical companies are not immoral or unethical, but they're actually just too powerful, and I want them reined in.
I mean, I would view it as more of like a general issue, not just to pharmaceutical companies. I'd want to end lobbying in like every industry, not just hurt pharmaceutical companies' profits so they have less money to lobby. But I mean, I don't know. I just prefer to take a more holistic approach. But
you need a constitutional convention for that one. Lobbying is literally in the First Amendment.
Yeah.
Well, sure. Yeah.
Are you?
You have a right to petition your government.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rich.
Nonfon, are you talking about the 2017 study?
I would assume they have not changed since 2017, but this could be. No, this is from 2020.
It says it's still not the healthcare 2017 edition, is what you posted. Did you think you posted
I guess it's published in 2020, but it says 2017 edition. Sure. Okay. I mean, I would assume the results have not changed majorly since 2020. And to be clear, you have you don't actually have any. You don't have any evidence. You just have your feelings, basically.
Well, I'm just saying that I didn't see anything in here about that the U.S. gets drugs first.
I mean, I quoted it. It says right here, "While drug prices explain relatively little for the U.S., it's quite evident the U.S. adopts new drugs much sooner and much more intensely. These differences are particularly stark when we compare the United States to developing countries and the rare high-income countries
known to." Important statement there. Once they're approved.
I mean, they don't. I mean, I might.
It doesn't say that.
I've not read into. This is taking into account the approval process. Like this is just saying, as a matter of fact, it is true the U.S. gets new drugs sooner. Now, maybe we get them even faster if the FDA approved them sooner. I don't know that much about the FDA process. Maybe it's too hard. But as a matter of fact, clearly, one factor is outweighing the other here, and that the FDA is not dragging us down far enough to not get new drugs sooner than other countries, holistically, on average.
And that's its own issue, right? Because the do no harm thing in the Hippocratic Oath means that the perception out there is that you can't harm like one person in order to heal 10 people, because you can't do any harm. But if you were to change that to a more utilitarian perspective, you could then approve drugs that say this is going to help more people than it hurts, and therefore you can have legislation like the right to try legislation that they've tried to pass a few. Actually, I think they did pass. For some drugs, people can bypass some of those rules, especially if they're very close to death. If there's a new drug that comes out, they have a right to try it. If you want to broaden that so that these approvals happen faster, I think you're going to have trouble. You're going to have trouble with, say, the anti-vaxxers, right, who will say approval happened way too fast and way too easily when it came to the vaccines, right? So
there's always going
to be someone who's not happy with the speed at which the FDA approves things in one direction or another, too fast, too slow.
All right, perfect. Well, this is a good time as any here. Let's get some outros here. We've covered a lot of topics today. I'd once again thanks my fill-in people for coming in so last minute and being so wonderful to do that. And thanks to my regular people as well for being here as always. Appreciate that. It helps me, allows me to be able to have panels weekly all over races. I don't know how some of these guys plan shit every day and don't have like a consistent group of people that like they know will come like. Crazy stuff. But all right, let's get some closings. Talk about whatever you got. Promote yourself. We'll start with you, Grid, and we'll just make our way around here. Tell us what you do, where you're at, and what you got coming on, and all that good stuff.
I was going to go to sleep, but I got drugged back up here. So you can find me at An Unreasonable Man on YouTube. I don't know what my Twitch handle is. It's out there somewhere. I don't actually stream to Twitch very often. That's about it.
Thank you so much. Cal.
Yeah, debate coach out of Texas. Always fun to go on these panels. This is actually the last week for I've got summer break now, so I'll be available a little bit more for some of this stuff over the summer. I especially enjoyed this last topic because it caused everyone to like hit their role reversals. It's really great to see conservatives proposing socialism and people on the left discovering free market principles. Great.
Yeah, after I read out, if you want to talk about that stuff, I found that a lot of this very interesting to myself. The role reversals. We can talk off stream about that if you want. Nina, go ahead.
Of course, it's great to see you, Ike. It's been a while. You look great. I feel like you are kind of aging backwards somehow.
Benjamin Button situation going on.
Yeah, a little bit of that, but it's great to see all of you guys. Thank you.
Maybe you're
for
just
having
getting
me.
older, and the relative the ratio.
I did get married, so maybe it makes me older. I don't know if that's how that works, but
wiser.
Yeah, it's great to see all of you, of course. Thank you for having me. Twitch.tv/Nina. I think that these conversations are a lot of fun to have. I have enjoyed being on your panels. Gibbs, I don't know if this is a new thing for you, but I don't know if you haven't been inviting me earlier, but I've been really enjoying having these conversations. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, I always like when you're a part of it, so I'm a big fan.
Gibbs, I'm sorry. She just reminded me of something. I actually do a debate game show on the weekends where you can win money. It's a blood sport debate, 5-minute rounds. Nonfon, have you been up yet?
Yeah, I was there.
But you didn't remember what your
you were.
Twitch
You were there. You did pretty well, didn't you?
He's on YouTube mainly.
Yeah.
The Unreasonable Man.
YouTube only. And Unreasonable Man. And it's Saturday night. We start at 8 o'clock. We go till there's one person
The
left.
Unreasonable Man or A Unreasonable Man?
And Unreasonable Man.
And
5-minute blood sport debates. You get 1 minute to open each person, and then 5 minutes to make your points, and then you're
love that you needed to talk over me for that one. Go ahead.
Yeah, Nina, go ahead and finish your thing. By the way, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought she was finished. I apologize.
Anyway, Nina, go ahead. Finish out. Do you have any more you want to say?
No, I was totally done. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, Nonfon, go ahead.
Yeah, I do a lot of debates like this. I appreciate these types of conversations. You can go watch all of them on my YouTube channel, Nonfon, Nonfon, and I stream them live to YouTube as well as Twitch and Kick and Twitter, I guess, at Nonfon420. Listen, price caps are just typically pretty bad. The healthcare industry is uncompetitive, so it makes sense why they might be more appropriate in the healthcare industry. But they seem to be cringe. That's the last thing I'll say.
All right. Thank you so much. He's a regular here. We love him, even though he's wrong about everything. I think that one day he's going to become an economic conservative. He's going to be. Are you going to be the Kimbo Slice of Twitch poll? It's going to be. That's what's going to happen. You're going to go from
being conservative does not. Being a fiscally aware does not make you conservative, my guy.
We'll see. We'll see. It's my prediction here. All right, Tiberius here.
Is there that much difference between a neolib and a neocon anyway? I didn't think there was, but all right,
Absolutely.
y'all can have that fucking. You can have that argument.
No wonder you're confused, Tiberius. No
what
wonder.
Are you a Hassan fan?
Hey, look, if it makes you feel any better, I just think you're all retarded. All right.
That's fair.
That's all it comes down to.
We all.
We probably are. Yeah.
All right. No. Yeah, I'm supposed to be a retired Twitch streamer. I have been asked to come back, and y'all made me feel real warm and welcome. I'm definitely regretting my life choices tonight. Anyway, I don't know if I'm going to stick with this at all. It's fun to talk politics, but sometimes it's a real doozy. To sum up tonight's events and topics, it's fuck the Russians, fuck China, and fuck Big Pharma. So yeah, I hate to leave on a sour note, but that's where we're at.
Like a positive note.
Yeah, absolutely positive note here. Yeah, this was quite the event, Gibbs. But it's interesting to see the man of the night is Gibbs. Gibbs being a solid moderator. I've got to give him credit for this. I didn't see this coming.
Yeah, I try. I go on these panel shows, and this isn't a bad show anybody, but I hate when you go on there and it's like suddenly you're facing the moderator as a debater too.
All of them.
But also at the same time, people don't understand how hard it is. Like you'll get a panel and suddenly you'll have a person drop, and it's okay, you need someone to fill in, so you have to kind of be that guy. But then people it's rigged, you're collusion, and you're so it's this happy medium you have to walk. I don't know.
I used to have a panel show. I totally feel for you, dude. It's a complete pain in the fucking balls. I don't know why you suffer through it, but you do, and so thanks for having me on.
We love you for that.
Hey, listening to Gibbs tell people that they need to have decorum is an out of body experience.
He's having to put a suit on.
Yeah, I'm calm down, boys, calm down. Yeah, it's and that's the point. When I'm not moderating, I don't have to be good.
He's on his best behavior.
Yeah, that's the secret. But all right, we're gonna rate out to Modi here because guess what? I'm gonna be on his dating show tomorrow.
Oh, that's the name.
With Flute and Dude. It's gonna be fun times. As always. So y'all be good. Thank y'all all for coming. It was very fun. I appreciate it.
Night, Gibbs.
We'll
Y'all
see
be
you,
good.
Gibbs.
All right,
Take
thank
care.
you, thank you. Great
Thanks
to
so
see
much
all
for
of you.
Thanks again for filling in. I always need people when I have it.
Of
So thank you
course.
so much.
See you guys. Guys, I'm gonna use a bathroom. I'm gonna steal Soy's content. Okay. He's doing a throwdown Thursday. Oh, they haven't started the open panel yet. God damn. I was gonna say, usually they start the open panel 10:30. It would have been cool to just hop right in after that, but whatever. If you want to chat with me live, sub here or go to Nonfon420 on Twitch or Kick via the links below. Once again, please like and sub to help with the algorithm, and consider sending a donation through YouTube Super Thanks to directly support me, and I'll make sure to reply to any question you ask. See you guys next time.